So in our budget, we're going to be putting forward measures that will directly help Canadians. Measures around affordability, measures around continuing to deliver on improvements in healthcare that Canadians are so urgently needing, and measures that will continue to create great jobs for Canadians right across the country. I very much look forward to presenting that budget, but everyone's going to have to wait a few more weeks.
With me now to talk about that, former Bank of Canada Governor David Dodge. Mr. Dodge, great pleasure to see you as always.
Good to be here, Vassy.
I appreciate you making the time. I wanted to start off on the question of new supports for Canadians in this budget. The government has already introduced some targeted supports. Inflation has started to ebb down, but it's still pretty sticky, and life is pretty expensive for Canadians right now. Do you think that's the right move to introduce some more targeted supports? He was specific in that characterization.
Well, to the extent they're going to introduce supports, indeed, targeting is absolutely key rather than a broad-based support.
And what about the question of more supports? And I ask that in the same way that I sort of framed the introduction, against the backdrop of restraint that the finance minister has talked about, not wanting to spend so much that you make the problem of inflation worse. Can the government afford to provide more supports from that perspective?
The question really is, should the government go and borrow some more money in order to provide that support, and as opposed to raising taxes to provide that support, or as opposed to cutting other spending. And I would argue at this stage, the most important thing for the government to be focusing on is the investment that will build opportunities going forward. And that, in order to provide room for that, it seems to me that there is less room to provide immediate relief for Canadians, even if it is well targeted.
When you talk about investment, are you referencing things like, for example, whatever investment they had to put up to secure Volkswagen's big decision to come to North America, to come to St. Thomas, Ontario, things that basically attracting the kind of investment that the U.S. is competing very fiercely for right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And in our infrastructure, which is needed to support the private investment, and our investment in human capital to make the changes, allow us to make the changes that are necessary as we deal with climate change.
On the question of whether they can afford, kind of within that construct, to offer more targeted supports, is there any way to navigate that? And I obviously take your point around borrowing money and the sort of pitfalls of doing that in order to support that kind of spending. But there are a lot of Canadians who are at this moment, really finding it hard to go grocery shopping, finding it hard to be able to buy the things that the necessities of life, and a little help could perhaps for them go a long way.
That is absolutely undoubtedly true. Then the question is, do you borrow to provide that support for those Canadians, or are you willing to tax higher income Canadians to provide that support for people that are finding it very hard? That is a tough decision for the government to make, but that is a very reasonable thing to provide support at the bottom, paid for at least in large part by people that are more room to maneuver.
The finance minister is not only holding meetings right now in the lead up to the budget, Mr. Dodge, but also meeting with the Bank of Canada's governor and the head of the banking regulator on this big issue with banks that's happening right now south of the border and also trickling over to Europe. There seems to be, and markets are reflecting this, a real concern right now about the stability of banks. What do you think is at stake?
Well, what is happening is that there's a big shift in the financial sector that's coming from the fact that after many, many years of extraordinarily low interest rates, we're going to all have to pay higher interest rates. That is absolutely what is going on and is reasonable. And that means that some banks in very particular situations, like the SVP, um, find themselves in trouble. Um, uh, that is in part due to the fact that we're finally having to rein in the growth of money. But secondly, is due to the fact that in the United States, under President Trump, the regulatory attention was cut back very dramatically, and so this relatively small bank in a very risky area, it got itself into trouble. What is, I think that is the case, and there are probably two or three or four other small, highly concentrated banks that may also be in some trouble as well. That's the nature of the capitalist system. What what we have in Canada, though, is we have tougher regulation, much tighter regulation, which is very good in providing stability, although it means that there's not as much support for innovation in the private sector as might be the case. But it is certainly very good for stability. So I think in that sense, we don't have the sort of problem that some some corners of the United States, they're having because of these relatively small, highly concentrated banks that have been subject to very light regulation since the Trump moves, deregulatory moves
Right.
in 2018.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Very helpful analysis. Thanks, Mr. Dodge. Appreciate it.